Did you know
This is Auto Collabs.
that sometimes Google literally breaks and every marketer in the country freaks out for like about 3.5 minutes?
I actually didn't know that. How does it break?
Literally all of AdWords and Google Analytics just shuts down. And what you find is marketers, they have these corners in their offices, and you see that, like, if you could bird's eye view, you would just see them shaking in the corner. It's quite a wild phenomenon.
This
It's
is
just-
Is it
Dude,
because they think they've just done something very wrong, or they just don't know what to do?
they don't know what to do. They're like, I can't log into analytics. Life is gone. Life as we know it, it's over.
this is precisely why old people hate young people.
Is
Because
it
they-
precisely why?
That's
Okay.
exactly
it.
why. The
Because
one
they get-
reason.
They're like, so let me get this straight. Something on the interwebs broken. I had to
Well-
boil all my food. I had to mow the lawn with scissors.
I hope
This
it
is-
never comes back.
This is like
That's
the moment where I'm like, why won't this website load? Why won't it load? And my dad looks at me like, son, do you remember middle school? Right? Oh man, that has nothing to do with anything that we're going to be probably talking about.
Oh, I'm sure
with
it ties in somewhere.
Evan. Well, it might sneak in.
talking
But we
marketing.
are really excited to introduce you, our friends here in the Auto Collabs world. Evan from FlickFusion. We're going to be hanging out with him today. I don't know much about Evan. I don't know too much about FlickFusion outside of their video capacities, but should be a riveting conversation.
Love the
Seems
new
like they
people.
always are.
Absolutely. I love the new ones. I have high hopes. It's a good day. We're all kind of in good moods.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking
FlickFusion is going to be at ASOTU CON. I'm excited about that. So, if you don't know about FlickFusion, you get to introduce yourselves to them then. And I think Evan's going to be there. So,
and if you don't know about ASOTU CON, actually,
then are you
let's just not
living?
assume. It's no.
What are you
ASOTU CON is
doing,
our
boiling your food?
yeah. Your
Get with the
grandparents
times.
and parents probably won't be there, but ASOTU CON is like the automotive industry's version of like South by Southwest. It's in Baltimore this year. You can go to ASOTUCon.com. We hope you can join us there. But for now, we have this conversation with them.
Okay, so I moved to Texas and I realized that the grass in Texas is different than the beautiful Kentucky blue from Canada. And so what do, Evan? I join a bunch of groups. One is called Texas Lawn Care Nuts. And it's all about different mowers and different ways of cutting the grass. And then I see you join the call. And I wonder, is there a group for beautiful bald men?
There is at least 3 of us.
Oh, see, I didn't
Oh,
see my
man.
bald head.
And
Unbelievable.
then
And then you realize that this is it.
This is it.
this is the group. And then in the spirit of mowing, I can't help but ask, are you a razor in the shower kind of guy? Or are you the like
I was wondering where he was going with this.
So
electric?
that's an
How do you-
awesome question. It took a long time to figure this out, man. It's clippers here, clippers are the rough stuff, razors in the mirror. You got to do the ears. Like if you don't get this right, you're in trouble.
Because there's
it's-
nothing more
this-
annoying than having a bald dude and he's forgot the hairs behind his ears and they're
And
like
I've been that
wispy.
bald dude that's done that before. And I've been the
Yeah,
one
You're
I
just
think-
like waving at you, flapping in
been
the
at-
wind back there.
2 years ago at NADA on day 1, I realized I left a little like
Oh,
I was hurrying. I was pumped up. We were back at NADA. If you remember that, it was like, all right, let's get back.
I
It
do.
was like,
You're like,
Just
oh my
a little-
gosh.
I think
but
it might
to
be-
everybody out there, you have a beautiful head. You look great bald. Just
yeah,
everybody.
like
You
do
know
you ever
this.
call your mom and thank her for not letting you as a baby lay on one side longer than the other? Because that is you got a perfect shape going on.
I got some bumps on the back, but nobody notices. Everybody I thought I had a weird head. I got a big head.
Very symmetrical.
But
Yeah.
hey, man, I was bald. Grandparents, both sides, mom, grandma, grandpa. It was coming. I was 22. One of the best decisions I ever made.
Yeah, I don't know,
Never
Michael.
goes out of style.
I don't know why we're talking about this so deeply all of a sudden, but I don't know what Michael decided. But when you look back at my pictures from like my late 20s, I was like, man, I'm like, where was that friend that just told me, man, it's time?
It was my girlfriend.
Yo, my wife was like, you better do something about that, because like I went through the comb over. She's like, you better do something about this, because one day our kids are gonna ask why your hair parts in a circle.
This is sideways.
I have no idea how we're getting back from this one.
Hopefully, my last comment on here was I went to the barber shop. My girlfriend, I got home. She said, "How much did you pay for that?" I was like, "Oh, it's like $25, $30 with a tip." And she was like, "Never again."
Never again.
Then I joined automotive at one point. I don't remember.
Bro, we need an automowers group.
MOW Tim,
Yes.
right?
A Discord channel. Hey, for the
Oh,
ASOTU
my
verse, if you
gosh.
think us and Evan should create the first ever beautiful fucking group,
comment, like, subscribe, all of the things.
Lobby,
Smash that like.
start a GoFundMe. We're gonna make this happen.
For it.
Well,
and that
you said
actually is the
22.
whole reason why you're a sales director at a company in automotive. That's the whole rap. It's because you're bald. That's why.
No.
pretty
Was it
sure it's
automotive
not.
that made you?
I'm sure it was a really big hiring decision. Yeah. Couldn't hurt.
He sat at a boardroom table in front of 14 other bald men with beards.
It was a built-in when I was selling cars. It was a built-in, like, we're waiting for finance, sitting there talking knee to knee, and I don't want to talk about the car deal anymore. If they were bald, we were golden.
When did you get into the car business?
2017 is when I guess 16 is when I started selling cars. I sold for about a little over a year and a half at a dealership.
He goes ahead and he says that.
Yeah, this is Paul's thing.
This is
Paul
my
gets
thing.
all excited. He's like,
I do.
He did it.
I'm like, well, every time somebody says that, I'm just flabbergasted that I didn't know that ahead of time, because if I was an industry partner, I would put that on my shirt. When I started selling cars and realized that opens up so many more conversations for you, and people all of a sudden understand, like, oh, I know where you're coming from. Like, just like one bald guy to another, like, oh, I know where you're coming from. So, okay. So you started selling cars. I just get excited about that.
That was my first real job, right? And I just watched the Real Job episode, and that's what I thought when I got into it, for sure, though. That's what happened. But it's kind of like when I was a bartender, when I was way younger. People would say, "Don't worry, I'm a bartender," and you're like, "That's a little shady." So it always helps sometimes once they get to know you, but just saying that isn't going to earn you anything.
So you that was your first real job, and the jobs you had before that sound like obviously a bartender. Were you like hospitality type jobs?
Bartender, server, random construction jobs, concrete, tile, a little bit of framing, a little bit of whatever.
Gosh,
so
common, right? Hardworking, knows how to talk to people. Automotive is just like, come to us, right? We have a place for you.
100%. It worked out real well.
So started selling cars
like in that first year and a half, because it's always interesting to understand, like, what type of dealership were you a part of, and what was the experience, and what kind of like crafted the reason why you still sit in a seat in auto today?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. And I look back on it, you forget day to day kind of how you get to this day here, but it's cool to think about it. Like, yeah, I was a bartender and a server, and I looked online and I found a place that was hiring. It was a Chevy store out west of where I was living. I went in for the interview. I met with like what would end up being my one-to-one sales manager, and then the general manager, and then the owner, or the managing partner at the time. And they just offered me the job right there. It was a great deal. Like, I learned a lot, like way more than I could have thought of. Just like I think a lot of people should be a server and a bartender. It should be like a requirement. I think you should have at least like a week in that first week of training in an auto dealership if you want to participate. Like, for real, it was. I'm not immune to the idea, and there were some people that didn't help it, but I'm not immune to the idea that, dude, they're just going to rob from me. They're going to rob me. They just want my friends, all this stuff, because there was a small part of that, but it wasn't intentional. Like, I got in, I learned how it worked. I worked hard. I showed up to training on time. showing up was half the battle. I was just there, present. And like one thing that I've always taken into whatever job it was is like my level of service will determine my outcome. And that was true. I thought for sure that at some point I was going to have to be like, get a gold chain and start lying to people. And like, we put sawdust in the car. I think it was Matilda or whatever that movie. We put sawdust in the car, and none of that ended up happening. What ended up happening was the guy that was running the store was actually a good guy in the community. He was somebody I could go talk to. My sales manager taught me a lot of life lessons that I ran into him at the grocery store like a year and a half ago, and I just stopped and say, hey, I still say some of the same stuff you told me on my very first day, and I believe it today for real. And it's not only just automotive, he always told me like at the end of any pitch, whether it's with anybody, not even just in a work environment, he was like, one of the last reasons they should say, why should I work with you is, well, because I work here. And I'm going to tell you this, I'll do what I can to be a service to you. And if you ever find out that I'm not doing that, I want to be the first one to know about it and the first one to fix it. And he said, people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. This was day 1, 2, or 3 stuff when all we were doing was moving cars on the lot, learning how to park them in a line and like back it up. But I was trying to absorb like life information. I didn't know much about finance either, learn about how that works. And like, basically it was a natural. The easy part for me was always like, knee to knee. That was perfect. That was awesome. It was going to be fine.
How
Whatever.
crazy is that like you get into auto, it's like you get to learn life skills, customer care, service. You learn about like you are forced into learning about financial responsibility, interest rates, all that type of stuff, and parallel parking.
Yeah.
Right. It's like now I can look, like you can spot someone that's worked in auto before. They back into every spot they ever park in ever. Right.
I'm not a backer anymore. I'm not a backer anymore. I'm not. I hate it. But I know the feeling, man. It was really cool. So that went on for a little while. We switched. I went to the internet department after like a couple months, and like again, I wasn't the top salesperson, but like day to day, it was a matter of like doing what was asked of me. They believed in a process. I was following the process, and they switched me to the internet. And so I was fielding internet leads and stuff like that. And that switched a lot because it was like super. Then I wasn't need to meet with them. It wasn't lot ups. It was like email, text, transactional. Like a lot of it was like beat you up on price and stuff. And it's like, how can I get them in front of me? I ended up being all right at that. And after about a year, a little over a year, I did real well there, paid off a bunch of debt, paid off a bunch of stuff. And, there was an opportunity for here at FlickFusion that just popped up kind of randomly, just like the car dealership one. Sometimes like, I think, life just winks at you a little bit. And if you got your eyes open, you might see it. I don't know that if it was like all divinely ordered or whatever, but it seemed to work out. And I started here at FlickFusion, back in 18. And I've been working with here since then. So.
Wow. So that was actually a really short, like it only took a year for you to make that. And you got all of that knowledge and all of that packed into you that you still hold on to in 1 year in the dealership.
Yeah. It was a lot. It was like a fire hydrant and,
So how do you carry that? Like, because, well, first of all, I guess, was it something that you all were utilizing FlickFusion in the dealership there? How did you have that relationship?
No, so FlickFusion is based in Iowa. They have their home base in Iowa. That's where I'm from. We service dealerships all across the country and international through a couple of resellers and stuff like that. But it was a lot of happenstance. Like I was in internet, and we'd always have monthly meetings, and like you had 100 leads, you only converted blah blah. However many we'd have the internet department ones, and he'd talk about doing video. It was always talk about, and I know he wanted to, but he just didn't really think about that it was an option. And I shot some from my phone. I shot some, just kind of sent them out to people. I'd do like you get asked for a walk around. If I get asked for something, I want to go show them whatever it is.
Right.
I want to get a car deal out of it. And it's the right car, I think, for them. And so I wanted to do that. FlickFusion, when I went into it, I didn't know much about the company. I didn't know a whole lot about it. A lot of what FlickFusion does has kind of been in the background since their origination. It's one of the bigger little companies a lot of people have never heard of. We service a lot of our customers through a network of resellers. So I had not heard of the customer-facing name, but I heard about what they were doing. They were working on an integration with the CRM that I was using then, so that helped them kind of want me on that side. It ended up being just a great relationship from the start. I went into the interview, honestly, it's like a practice interview, and I left thinking like, man, I think I might stick around. And so that's what ended up
Wow.
happening for real. And I mean, I've told Tim, my boss, that before, but it's true. It was like, maybe try this out and hey, stick with automotive. But I didn't sit in a seat 6 years ago and say, hey, I'm going to work in automotive forever. But it's certainly given me a beautiful, beautiful life. And it was not the one that I would have thought. And it's not been the experience that like, I would have thought coming in either.
Right.
He just said automotive has given me a beautiful, beautiful life.
That's to say the least. I'll say it again.
That's so nice.
Man, just like
I'm gonna hang on. I'm gonna hang on to that one. Yeah,
I
that
know.
one's gonna
Just
stay
hang.
with me.
I'm loving that statement. So, what is it? Since you've been with FlickFusion and obviously now being able to work with dealers across the country, other industry partners, right? Your white label or resellers. What is it that you see that's unique about the way FlickFusion is meeting the market and kind of like drawing all those people together? Because it sounds like there's a lot of collaboration that's necessary, and you have like a customer impact point that you meet. You're not just like an internal tool. What is it like to kind of like draw all those people together and start to organize around a common vision of what the tool accomplishes?
Yeah, it's been interesting. So like I started like a lot working with our partners and resellers, helping them on an individual basis they had an idea of what they want to do with video and how they wanted to take it. And we do a lot of custom work that allows us to do that in a lot of different ways. Most of what you'll see is just individual inventory videos on a website. Instead of just photos, there's a video and or an interactive 360. And we've been doing that for quite some time. I think the biggest benefits that I've seen is that, again, like at my very first dealership, it was always like a thought, but it's like, man, this is going to be hard. That was always his thing, is like, this is going to be too hard to do. How are we going to get this into get it into the regular process? And what I've gotten to see and be a small part of for individual stores and for big, small resellers in between is taking that scare of like, this is going to be a big, scary thing to, you got guys or girls or people on your lot right now that are doing this. Maybe it's not for their car, but they have their phone in their hands. Tell me one person at automotive dealership doesn't know how to open their camera. Well, I mean, they know how to do it. And it's just taking that exact same mold and getting comfortable putting it out there. And like it's especially, I love the impact of the inventory videos for the individual customer for sure. We want to give the best automotive buying experience online as possible. But my favorite really is getting like the face and the name of the individual salespeople in front of the online leads or opportunities or however you want to call it. These are people, potential customers of yours, early and often, and getting that introduction to start off with. Maybe they're bald like me, or maybe they just, once they come in, it won't be such of a scary face. And starting that, easing it in, and that's been awesome to do on, again, a small level, whether it's an independent store or a big client of ours that does it for hundreds of dealerships. Some of my favorite story, easily my favorite story of all time, actually, was one guy we started. They needed some videos. We helped them out with like the really initial stuff, set it all up, and I got this call from like the June bug. They're the lot porter guy walking around the dealership, and he said, "Hey, I take these cars to get the wheels and stuff on them. And I take them to get the rims and stuff on them, and the subs and stuff. I want to take a little video of this." And he said, "Can we do that?" And I said, "Yeah, let's set it up." I didn't charge them. I said, "Check with your manager before it goes online." They were on board with it. That person has since gone from doing that for one random car to every car on their lot, as well as rolling it into their sales process. So I didn't do it. This young man in this case did the work, but I got to be along for the journey of another person who got to have a beautiful life in automotive. He's one of their top salespeople today and still does this. And so whether it's large impacts or small ones, it's making an impact somewhere. There's times where it's like, man, what am I really doing in automotive? Man, we're just a part of this little thing. But when I look closely, the impacts are there, man. Like, even if, like, who knows what? And again, I didn't do this for this young man. He did it himself, but getting to be along for the ride, that's easily been my favorite thing that I've ever done here. And it's not the only one. He's just got a special place in the heart for the first one. I said his name once, and he said, "Don't ever mention me again." So I'm not going to.
Because we were about to be like, who is it? Where is he at?
I know. Well, I did, and he's like a silent soldier, man. He's just going to be in the back doing it. And he was like, I don't want to do that.
Oh, we need to meet him. We need to meet him.
You know what I think's interesting about this, which I really appreciate you've kind of touched on here, which is putting yourself on video is perhaps something that most people think is a scary thing. And I know even in my own personal development journey, especially as I started to move into branding myself and things of that nature, I talked myself out of doing video for like 6 months. I would record and then I'd be like, that thing is not seeing the light of day.
Never.
Right. And however, what I can say from my own experience, touching on what you've said, is that the minute I finally accepted my insecurities and like, this is how I look, that's how I sound, and I put myself out there, my confidence level went through the roof.
Mm.
And
in probably other aspects, right? It's not
other
just
aspects.
that. It was like,
there's a interesting psychology to it. So maybe for the sales professional or somebody within the dealership that's been talking themselves out of it, what you're saying is so important but there's an upside to this. Your confidence will go through the roof. And by the way, if you stumble on your words and you look nervous, there's actually really compelling psychology on that from the recipient's point of view, which is that their appreciation level of you skyrockets. They're so appreciative that you're doing something that makes you so clearly uncomfortable for their benefit. And like you said, then by the time they walk in those doors at the dealership, they see you and they go, that is the person I'm going to work with, because they put in effort where others weren't willing to. So I love that you brought that up. I had to get that out because it's a close to home thing for me, but I know hundreds of thousands of people in this industry probably struggle to just take that first leap. And hopefully this is encouragement for them to do so.
I've said I've got a face for radio, and if I can do it, then you can do it. And it's that day one lesson that I heard. People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care, and going out and doing a little bit more. And they can tell I'm uncomfortable even today. Trust me, I remember the first time I walked towards a Lada and like walked away a little bit because I was scared. And then the next time I went up and I shook their hand like I was taught to do. Same thing happened with video. I got over it, and then it works. And then like, okay, it's working. Now it's easy. The second time's always easier, you know? So I love that. It's going to be it's always that first one's the hardest. Just do it. Hit record, stumble, mess up. Great. Everybody messes up. Everybody messes up. Everybody goes to mess up all the time.
What a great encouragement. Well, yeah, you've proven that whether it be a face for radio or a missed line of hair for NADA, like, hey, if you can do it, if your head can do it, then anybody should step out there and try it. So, Evan, thanks so much for joining us. The conversation was fun, insightful, and I believe probably helpful for more than one out there that are listening. So, appreciate you on behalf of all three of us for joining us here on Auto Collabs.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, I definitely didn't expect Michael to start the conversation the way he did. Could we ever really? He starts these conversations like, so here's a little behind the scenes for how this show works. The guest comes on and we say, here's how the show works. And then whoever happens to start that spiel, whether it's myself, Kyle, or Michael, they get the privilege of assigning who is opening the show interview and who is closing the interview. So Kyle was like, Michael, he's going to get us in with a conversation, and then we're going to talk for about, 17, 20 minutes. And then when it's natural, I'll land the plane and I'll get us out. Great. The rules have been set. The guest is all set. And then Michael starts talking. And Kyle and I spend the next...
I feel like at some point we're going to write like some doom and gloom game that's called like the rules of engagement, #AutoCollabs or something. And it'll be like, so you're going to have to answer a question from Michael Cirillo first.
Well, I think he finds
everybody's
sport
like, no,
in the
I'm
fact.
done with the game. I'm done with the game.
Because it takes you
interviews. I've been doing interviews for like
Go ahead.
12 years now. And I just learned today the perfect segue is to just ask the next question, whether or not it has anything to do with what you've been talking about. That's what happened today. We're talking about cutting our hair. And then I was like, so when'd you get into the car business?
I noticed that. Well, I think Michael felt some level of obligation. Like, I got us so far down the rabbit hole, and I think Con and I were like, I don't know how to come back from this one.
I didn't know.
And because I think he
he brought it back really well because the
He did.
connection of the hair snafu with NADA was like sublime. I couldn't
It
even believe he
was.
snuck that
You
in.
couldn't build that in if you wanted to. Man, I really appreciate it too. It's funny, like you get this surprising amount of, I'm constantly surprised by the heart that comes out of the auto industry from
Yep.
unexpected places.
Yep.
And when he says the auto industry gave me a beautiful, beautiful life, something about the use of the word beautiful, and then twice, it just like hit me in a place.
Yeah,
It
and
just,
then he hit us with the porter that has a
Yeah.
beautiful life in auto
Yes.
that's now a top salesperson. I'm
Yes.
like, what do we even? Come on now, let's go.
Dare we say Auto Collabs, a divinely appointed podcast brought to you by
Yeah.
ASOTU.
Whoa.
I think dare we say that? I don't know.
I'm gonna get struck.
Dare we
I'm
say
looking
that.
up now. I'm gonna be
Yeah,
smitten.
well, I'm glad we're in different states.
Well, we
Oh
hope
man,
you
well,
enjoyed.
we hope you enjoyed this episode of Auto Collabs. I think it may be one of our most fun yet, from the intro to the conversation to the outro. And look, if you don't know where to grab the best hair products, you can probably hang out with Paul J. Daly, Michael Cirillo, or Evan. But on behalf of all of us and myself, Kyle Mounts here, thanks for joining us here on Auto Collabs. Welcome to Auto Collabs. Why are we recording?
Are we rolling yet?